Could your worst animal nightmare be sharing the ocean with a great white shark, searching for an easy meal? A scenario that was to be hauntingly predicted in a dream by the father of the victim.
I lived through it before it happened.
Phil Peterson was to remember his prophetic dream the day after his son Nick was attacked by a shark while skiing with 3 friends off a South Australian beach. A dream that was to mirror the future tragedy in every detail. A dream that was to become in every way a nightmare.
I was in a dinghy and I was hitting with yaws. I turned to Nick, who's got his arms locked over the gunnels on the other side. He says, "Don't hurry up, it's got me."
Yeah, hurry up, it's got me.
It's calmness. And for the first time in my life, I said, "This is futile. This is futile. Nico, I can't do this. Can't do this." I woke up.
What was only a bad dream 3 months earlier was to become a brutal reality in the Peterson family's worst animal nightmare. The waters off the South Australian coast are renowned for having one of Australia's largest colonies of great white sharks. People living around the beaches off the coast of Adelaide are mostly well aware of the dangers that could be lurking in the deeper waters of the ocean. But for South Australian teenager Nick Peterson, the beach was his way of life.
He was just the kind of guy in the group that everyone kind of look up to and essentially follow.
Like a lot of his best friends, he had been brought up in the arms of the surf culture. He excelled in almost every water sport. To his friends, he was their top man.
I just saw him as slightly invincible.
Young Nick had a charisma that made him not only popular with everyone, but also highly respected by his friends. He embraced life to the fullest, especially on his schoolies week or spring break.
I think the week beforehand, us boys actually went away down south, only probably 45 minutes down south, and stayed at a shack there at Port Noarlunga.
For Nick and his mates, life couldn't be better. School had wrapped for the year, and as tradition had it, each December they would rent a beach house for the holiday break, where they could indulge in their beloved water sports every day. It was time to have fun, time to party, and Nick was the life of the party.
He could be a bit of a character.
With a tough final year of school behind him, it was the cue for Nick and his friends to let their hair down.
One of those real genuine mates, sort of a little bit larger than life.
He definitely was a country boy. His attitude seemed, even when things were adverse, to remain fairly positive.
For Adam, Andrew, and Ty, Nick was their best friend.
He was just one of the guys, really. Just one of your tight-knit, really good mates, really.
The holiday break gave the boys plenty of time to enjoy the water and an ominous hint of the tragedy ahead.
We were out full surfing and just out in the water again.
Adam, Andrew, Ty, and Nick weren't the only ones sharing the water that day.
Nick was the one that had spotted a shark.
See the fin? Come back.
He sort of joked around that Nick was going to sort of beat up a shark.
Come back. Come back in, there's a shark, I can see it. Yeah, come on, come back in.
In a spine-chilling twist, it was the same shark they would encounter just 1 week later. This time, they were an hour's drive south of where the attack would later take place.
And then we just kind of got to joking around.
The shark was cruising the coast, looking for any feeding opportunity.
I remember someone saying, well, hopefully if it grabbed anyone, it would have grabbed you, Nick. And by that, I think we were implying that, a shark wouldn't stand a chance against Nick.
As far as the boys knew, there hadn't been a shark attack here in their living memory, and they didn't even consider the possibility.
Sharks played a huge role in our lives. In the decade preceding his death, we saw an increase from 0 to 25 white pointer sightings at a time.
A week later, a young European tourist photographed the shark only hours before the impending tragedy.
They took photographs in the morning, or midday I believe, off Henley Beach area. Definitely a white pointer. It's so distinct.
West Beach area off Adelaide. It's an area that isn't really known for great whites, but there had been some reports earlier in the days before that that said that there'd been a couple of sightings of a great white in that area. I think it had been reported on the news, if I remember correctly. Although they're cool-blooded and they don't need to eat as much as, say, a full warm-blooded mammal, they still require a bit of food. So to hang off a beach and there's not much food there for weeks or months on end is completely out of the character of a great white. But to hang around in an area and do some loops and opportunistically feed for a while, it's quite within the realms of a great white's behaviour.
The shark's movement along the coast was so unusual that it had been filmed. A massive white pointer showing absolutely no fear of boats or humans.
Nick and I started the day at about 7:30 paving. It was on a main road. It was a really hot day. It was about 40 degrees. And Ty and Andrew were staying at my house because my parents were away.
Mate, it's hot.
We'd actually all been out the night before, so they got up early and went to paving, and me and Ty actually slept in.
You want to go for a swim when we're finished?
Yeah, let Adam and Ty know.
They gave us a text that morning saying, "Oh, we'll pick you up and take the boat out."
So far, it was just a normal, uneventful summer's day.
We were trying to work off a hangover. Andrew and I were having a pretty solid snooze.
Dude, what time is it?
It's almost 1. What did we have, son?
Had a year off working for friends. I think it was starting about 6:30 or 7 on the day.
Fish mate. Yeah, I've grabbed the boat as well. This is good.
And of course it was a pretty warm day, so by about 2:30 I think they were in the water, these boys.
Geez, that was a big night last night.
Bet you the other boys are sleeping it off.
Yeah, mate, they've been better on that.
I think we woke up at about 2, just as they were coming home anyway, and they were pretty keen to get on the beach.
They had known each other right through school and were as close as 4 brothers.
Yes, I got the boat. Whatever said, mate. Get up.
Nick went and got the boat straight away, and I went home and went up with the boys, and then Nick picked us up with the boat, and we went straight out to West Beach. We were going to do a little bit of fishing, had the surfboards in the back, they doing a bit of surfing.
On this Thursday afternoon, in the middle of a hot Australian December, they were reveling in their end-of-school freedom.
We were having a good laugh because as we were piling everything in, they kept hitting me in the head with everything. Like, they hit me in the head with the board, and then I'd come back up with the fishing rods, and I don't know, it was just 4 great mates just having a laugh.
The mood was celebratory as they headed off to an encounter that would change all of their lives forever. Their worst animal nightmare was about to become a reality.
It seemed like the perfect day, really.
It was to be another afternoon of riding boards and fishing.
Just before we went out, we picked up some bait.
Living in Adelaide, Nick Peterson had grown up with an awareness of sharks. But today was going to be different. They were about to become the prey for the biggest predator in the ocean.
There was like a little marina, kind of like docking spot for us. So yeah, we just reversed the tinny out there and just launched it from there.
Nick's father had been so deeply disturbed by his dream that he tried to stop his nightmare from coming true.
So I had indicated to Nick when he took it that I didn't really want him in the water for 3 months or more, and I told him there were 2 sharks that we'd seen articles to that effect.
The boys were about to mirror a pattern of activity they were doing when they encountered the same shark only a week before. This was a bold shark that seemed disturbingly comfortable near boats and people. Conditions were calm and clear, perfect beach weather. But it was a weekday, so the holidaying teenagers had the water almost to themselves.
There were a couple of boats, but yeah, not really too many people like out deep in the water. Just obviously just in the wash, just splashing off.
And any splashing activity in the area would heighten the interest of a patrolling shark.
The shark's moving around, looking in that area, going, well, what's around? all of a sudden you've got boat noise, scurfing. All of this is low level vibration. It's something to go and investigate. So a shark comes up and has a look.
It's like skiing, essentially. It's not like surfing where you got to finish once the wave's done. We were all just debating who was going to go out first. And no one sort of put their hand out right away, so I was like, oh, I'll go. It was so hot, so I was like, yeah, we're trying to get in the water.
This amount of intense activity would have been putting the shark's sensory organs on alert.
And then we turned around in a big R, and out to sea, and that's when I fell off going around the bend.
Many people mistakenly believe that powerboats will scare a shark away. If anything, the opposite is true.
Boat noises, things like this, are not going to send a shark away. It's just going to make a shark mildly inquisitive that there might be something available within the area.
And it was Andrew Tomlin who was at risk as the three boys left in the boat, distracted by something else.
Right then we actually saw like a pod of dolphins was swimming in front of the boat, so we thought that was pretty cool.
Another misconception is that dolphins in the water somehow keep sharks away.
We pretty much said bugger him, we'll just go check these dolphins out, and I think there's about 4 dolphins just kind of splashing around.
In reality, dolphins and sharks share the same territory. Dolphins are often eaten by sharks, so rather than being a deterrent, they are mostly seen as a food source.
At that point, I think you can probably pretty safely say the shark knew what was going on. It knew that there was a big object in the boat splashing around. It knew that there were objects jumping in, jumping out. There were low vibrations in the area. The shark was well and truly keyed in at that time as to whether it was going to have a go or whether it wasn't going to have a go.
Andrew has no idea how close he is to disaster. Andrew is now the focus of attention.
There was a bunch of dolphins around the day, and I went to go look at those, and I was just waiting out the back in the water with the board.
The boys felt the dolphins were trying to lead them away by how they kept turning back and swimming towards the beach. Andrew was forgotten in a moment, but not by the great white.
There's never been a shark attack at West Beach before, and so obviously it didn't enter the equation. Sitting in the water didn't really cross my mind.
Andrew is completely oblivious to the shark's interest in his legs dangling invitingly below the board.
I think they're going back in the shore, your ball.
No, I better head back and pick up Andrew.
The play things we forgot about.
Eventually we sort of went back and picked Andrew up, so he would have been sitting in the water for a good sort of 5 or so minutes.
By this time, they're only seconds away from the horrifying experience that would change their lives. The boat's motor comes back to heighten the great white's interest, and Andrew would have been right in the shark's sights, especially as he splashed his way back to the boat. The trigger that switched the shark's attitude from interest to attack was about to explode.
We kind of felt like, oh no, it's all fine. You know, if there are dolphins around, there's not going to be any sharks. And I think I was going to go up next and started to take my shirt off and get ready to go in.
No, you go first. Yeah.
And then I've seen Nick come around from the steering wheel and just so pumped to get out there, and I was just straight away going, oh mate, you know, it's your boat. You go for it, you've been working all day. Literally it was like 1, 2, and then the rocket out of water, just like that.
I think the stimulus to make it step from that keyed-in mild interest to going and having an attack was the splashing of Nick jumping into the water.
Andrew was quite quick to react. He turned around and grabbed an oar. I grabbed one as well. I mean, not that, you know, 2 kids with oars was ever going to do much, it's just that was the first thing that came to our head.
You can see he knew what was happening.
They made our boat look, you know, puny.
I remember seeing Nick just trying to punch it.
Had his left arm in a shark's mouth. The white water splashing just instantly turned to red water. And it made Nick look quite small as well. I don't know, when you're seeing one of your best mates just getting dragged essentially to his death, like, we had to try to do something, and that's why, I mean, still to this day, I sometimes have dreams or think, what if, like, we had a little knife on the boat and just anything. I don't know, you just kind of want back, and I don't know, you just have all these thoughts.
There's no protocol, there's nothing you get taught to do.
The great white carried Nick in its mouth right around the boat, all the while with Nick trying to gouge its eyes and punch at its head. But nothing anyone could do would have made a difference.
I reckon you could have shot this thing and it wouldn't have done much to it, to be honest. We all just felt so helpless.
There was like a lot of bubbles and a lot of blood and things like that.
The three friends experienced the horror of watching the shark devour their best friend right in front of them.
I just remember just this eerie sort of silence where we were just, right, like, where is it? What do we do now?
It was such a devastating event that it would echo through the rest of their lives. But for the great white, just another meal.
Adam was actually on the phone to the ambulance people.
Hello.
Okay, mate, what service do you want?
I need an ambulance.
Before they knew the worst, they believed Nick would fight his way out of it and survive.
Nick Peterson.
I just remember sitting at the back whilst Adam's on the phone, just trying to make sense to this person as to what happened, because we're all just in pieces.
Nick was beyond help, but the emergency operator became a link to a world where there was still some sanity.
She kept saying, like, giving me yours, which was really good, the way she handled it, because I was sort of screaming and shouting and I was a bit hysteric. She was just so good at controlling us and telling us what to do next.
They were all in deep shock and reluctant to leave the scene. They somehow wanted to stay with Nick.
They advised us that it'd be best to get everyone in, leave everyone on the boat, get everyone else out of the water on shore, and head back in. It was 100% that he wasn't going to still be alive, so we had to make that call as well amongst ourselves to leave.
I was like, did that just happen?
There was only one thing they could do. Warn others to get out of the water.
We just went in a bit shallower, I don't know, maybe sort of 30-40 metres out, and we were yelling out to people saying, yeah, like, get out, there's a shark.
We were trying to tell these people not to go out because of what had just happened, and they basically just laughed in our face. They just thought, nah, that can't be right, they're talking crap.
Put the boat in to the boat ramp.
They were determined no one would suffer the same fate as Nick.
Coast Guard. Right, I'm going to go clear the beach now. I'm going to clear the beach.
Adam ran up to the Sea Rescue Squadron, which is up at West Beach there, and alerted them.
The only group capable of locating the shark was the Volunteer Coast Guard.
I was up in the Surf Patrol Tower and they were trying to calm me down. The ladies up there were sort of, I think they got me like a wet towel just to cool myself off, and they sat me down and tried to calm me down, and I kept saying, no, I want to go and speak to the boys. And yeah, I just remember just sort of being in complete disbelief. And
eventually, he convinced them that the horror he's feeling had really happened.
They contacted a few other authorities, the police, and I think the lifeguards further down at Henley Beach. And I was waiting there with the boat for 10 minutes, trying to piece together exactly what had just happened.
I just ran along the beach, just trying to tell people to stay out of the water. I ran from West Beach to Henley, and the amount of people that just didn't believe me. Just got to the point where I was just picking up little kids and just taken them out of the water because their parents wouldn't believe me.
Coming to you live from West Beach, the scene of a fatal shark attack, the first on metropolitan beaches since 1987.
We had to give police interviews straight afterwards and a quick interview to the people at the sea rescue place.
A flotilla of small boats raced out to ensure the safety of everyone else still on or in the water. They had no idea if the great white would continue its macabre hunt along the coast, so they had to locate it and track its movements. There was also the grim search for Nick's remains. They were looking for anything that could be human and bringing it on board for examination and DNA tests. What they found in a widespread search of the fatal area filled just 1/3 of a small white bucket.
Police divers and search boats were out early as foot patrols combed 11 kilometres of coastline. Some remains believed to be human were recovered from the water. Others were taken by detectives to be forensically tested. The findings will formalise what we already know.
An order's gone out, hunt down and kill the shark or sharks responsible for killing 18-year-old Nick Peterson. But the victim's father has come out against killing great whites.
It'll be admired and appreciated and respected, and Nick knew that.
We have to learn to live with sharks. Sharks don't have to learn to live with us.
Just after 8 this morning, the 5-metre great white, the experts believe attacked and killed Nick Peterson, came back.
10 metres on the nose. 10 metres on the nose, he is.
It was seen at Grange, just 50 metres from shore. Swimmers were ordered out of the water as sea rescue boats moved in. The curious shark swam under and around the boat several times, and as the debate over whether or not to hunt and kill hotted up, it made its way out to sea.
This was the shark.
I think we've just come to terms with it now, and that, you know, he's forever out in the ocean, you know, the place that he loves the most. So, you know, that's what I mean by it's comforting in that way. It's good to just reflect every now and then and just think, well, now that I'm here and I'm happy here, is this a direct result of, you know, having that mindset about, you know, wanting to live a bit extra for Nick as well. So, you can play it down any way you want, but yeah, you just try to live each day as best you can.
For 3 days, the boys held a vigil, unable to leave each other's sides.
3 or 4 days afterwards, I think 14 boys all went in and got different tattoos. I've got a sunset on my leg.
To his friends, he was Beto. They knew him as someone who would do anything for them. He was everyone's counselor. He was worldly wise, independent and mature for his age. At 18, he was one of the youngest in his group, but a natural-born leader. He designed and built skimboards. He could fix anything, even his car. He was a house captain in his school, a prefect, a rep hockey player. At 18, he was the youngest to own a house. At 16, he was the youngest to have a boat license. Everyone who knew him mourns the loss of a young man with so much potential. But at the heart of it, Beto was a typical Aussie teenager who loved life in the water more than anything. These pictures are his friend's memorial tribute to a young life cut tragically short, and to everyone, his smile will live on forever.
On a positive side, we announced that at the service, largely, I guess, using Nick's circumstances as a vehicle, the Surf Life South Australia had secured a helicopter that they may have had to have waited indefinitely for them, and it's actually labelled the helicopter in Nick's name, which was very nice. When we hear it or see it, I guess it's encouraging to know that's up there.
This was the good that came out of Nick's tragedy. Constant aerial patrols that now help keep the beaches and the water safe for others.
Nick and I watched the original Poseidon Adventure not long before he died, and there's a scene in it which has always made significant impact on me. That is that Gene Hackman's character, the priest, clears a passage for the other people to go through and falls into the flame. And I turned to Nick and I said, you know, that scene's always stuck with me. I said, that's me, Nick. I'd do that. And he smiles. He said,
Dad, you don't have to do that anymore, Dad. It's my job.
you don't have to do that anymore, Dad. He said, that's my job.
Any one of them could have been the shark's prey. So was there a trigger that made Nick the target?
Nick was wearing yellow board shorts on the day. Yellow comes up top of the list still to this day, from the point of view of an attractant. Not a mark on those shorts. They washed him a week later with the keys to the car and the keys to the house.
Eerily, this tragedy was foreseen in Phil Peterson's frightening dream only months before it happened. Then the boys encountered the same shark under the same circumstances a week before the attack. And later, there was the chilling postscript when Nick's board shorts washed up on the beach with no damage whatsoever. And in a final twist of fate, on the key ring in the pocket, a miniature great white shark. Nick's nightmare was over.